Brandon Newman, back today with a very festive shirt here for the live stream and live podcast audience as we are out here in Los Angeles in advance of what will be tonight's Home Run Derby and then tomorrow's All-Star Game. How you feeling, Brandon?
Feeling good. Haven't stopped sweating since around 7 a.m. Pacific time. So in a stride, if you will, at this point.
Yes, I can say we're firmly greased up out here, which, by the way, if you are around here, feel free to walk over to the tent. We've got shade. We've got a decent cross breeze. And we've got Dallas Braden joining us today here, former major leaguer. Obviously, you can hear him after our podcast here as well with Jerry Carabas and the Baseball is Dead podcast, as well as one of the many great voices of the Oakland A's. Dallas, how you doing, man?
I am doing well, boys. Thank you for having me. I'm also sweating my entire inside out off right now. Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of big guy energy up here. It feels very good right now.
Yeah, you guys have got to be frothy.
It's a little hotter down here than it is in the Bay, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a hard yes. Yeah, we got a marine layer that comes into the Bay Area, it settles in, and it's, 68, maybe 74 on a hot day. Get a little crazy, you start tickling 79.
Yeah. Touch it.
Yeah.
Touch it. So speaking of that, you obviously have an entire other job outside of this. You just got in last night for All-Star Weekend. So how are you feeling coming off of that? Because it's always interesting to me. You've been through this as a player, obviously. You've been doing this with the A's for a while now, since back, 2017 as a broadcaster. So how is that different for you now coming into the break here, that life of doing it as an analyst versus your days as a player? Well,
as a player, I was never fortunate enough / good enough to make an all-star team. So you're always looking at this time of the year where you're like, hey, where am I going? It's vacation time. I'm finally gonna get to put my feet up for a few days. But then there's also, look, if you've been injured or if you're really trying to iron some wrinkles out, it's probably a good time to get in the lab and to be working on how you're gonna get better for that second half. So right now, my ERA doesn't change. Whether we give up 10 runs or we give up no runs, my work is done. My hay is in the barn. So it's all vacation on the brain for me. So when we were just in Arlington playing the Rangers, and I was, again, sweating every organ off that I have, and then in Houston, I can't wait to come back home to enjoy the off time, right? And the fact that the All-Star game is in my backyard here. I live in Southern California. DraftKings was going to be here, be a presence, a huge presence here. So that meant I was still going to be able to get to do baseball stuff, even quote-unquote on an off day, off time. It doesn't sleep. Baseball doesn't sleep.
You're a resident of Southern California?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
In Simi Valley.
Simi Valley. That's over the hill.
That is over the hill.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, that's over yonder, over Yahweh out there.
Yahweh.
Yes, that's not locale. I don't do this side of the hill.
The only reason I'm asking is to poke and prod at Mike here, who just moved to LA, Manhattan Beach. I used to live out here, so he's calling me LA Brandon every time I'm talking about driving around here. So I just had to get the local spot.
Oh, the homies crush me too, because I'm from NorCal. I mean, right. I got the area code tattooed on the stomach, man. Like there's no
there we go.
So
it's not real unless you've got that.
I mean, they don't just hand those stripes out to any tiger in the jungle, bud.
That is very true. Well-earned stripes over here for Dallas Braden. Want to get into...
Your guts up!
Oh,
Let's go! Let's go!
Red Raider Nation.
Red Raiders! I see that double T.
Oh, there we go.
Attaboy.
Is that a young mullet out there, too? Oh, and the Mahomes jersey here.
Bro, trifecta over there.
The Texas Tech representation here. Dallas, you brought out the best of the crowd here already.
Strong to quite strong showing already for the Red Raiders. Sorry.
So we'll get to some of what you're looking forward to with All-Star Weekend here. Some of what we saw last night out of the MLB draft. Some youngsters coming off the board early.
Great stories about one of those guys, too.
I definitely want to get into that, but first I want to talk about Porta Potty.
Please do.
Because we are up here. Brandon and I were teammates. You and Jared are teammates on the podcast, and I just got to explain to Brandon over there. I got to see the beautiful moment in his eyes when he realized that there was a plastic urinal attachment inside of those bathrooms that you could actually use, and a mirror on the back to scope yourself out on the way out here. Make sure everything's looking right.
You go into a scary place every now and then. You just keep your eyes closed, and you just got I don't want to see any extra shit in the porta potty. I didn't know that they had extra things like urinals. Like that was a much efficient It was a much
major
more
upgrade.
efficient porta potty trip just now, right before the podcast. And I thank you. I thank you for teaching me that.
And so there's learning moments there. You and I were talking before that before you came into Jared's life, wasn't a big sneaker guy. Now he's resplendent here, loud colors everywhere. He looks wonderful. What have you learned from Jared Carabas in your guys' time as podcast partners?
That it's totally okay to eat chicken fingers as a fully grown adult. And it's more than okay to eat those chicken fingers with a side of chocolate milk while enjoying white linen level dining. So when there's a seafood tower on the menu and there's not a price tag attached to it, it's still okay to order your chicken fingers and your chocolate milk.
So you're seeing a menu full of MP next to a lot of the dishes here. And
totally
Jared
okay
still
to
said
order off the child's menu.
But also, I feel like at that restaurant, you were asking, do you have chicken fingers? And they're like, yeah, of course.
It's kind of a move that we make because people bring their children in here that don't palate the offerings that we're featuring. So, yeah, if you'd like to eat what the 7-year-olds eat, no problem. It's okay to do that. That's what I've learned from Jared.
You know what? And it's been okay to do that at the buffet for a long time. One of my favorite pastimes is going in and power bombing the kids section of those. Early morning, a little bit hungover, mixing it with the eggs and everything else. Go grab some mac and cheese.
Buddy, I feel like I'm
tendies.
cutting a line if I see you two staring down a buffet. I don't know that I'm getting to the bottom. I mean...
Oh, yeah, no, you're pulling back nubs, and you're really actually just clanking spoon on metal if you make it in there after. So wise words and wise strategy. But... Dallas, I do want to talk about what you mentioned from last night here. A lot of great stories out of the MLB draft. Jackson Holliday goes #1 overall. I saw this courtesy of ESPN Stats and Info. He's the son of 7-time All-Star Matt Holliday. And the only other son of a former MLB player to go first overall in the MLB draft was Ken Griffey Jr. So pretty incredible night there. What were your thoughts on that, seeing him come off the board early?
Well, there's a lot of talk about where you're trying to select talent and what your team looks for. And a lot of times, high school players, for better or worse, I think people feel like are a gamble to an extent. There's not much of a sure thing in the baseball draft, regardless of what round we're talking about. And when you're talking about a young player, I think the first thing that you're identifying is their maturity level within the game. 7-time All-Star as your father, the pedigree is there. He's receiving an education at a big league level before he's able to ride a bicycle without training wheels. So when you think about that, you have to kind of look past some of that roll of the dice outlook that amateur players get labeled with. And as I was going to tell you, stories about Jackson Holliday, when Matt and I were teammates in Oakland, Jackson and I would sit next to each other, and his dad would get up so he could sit in the seat, and I had this fishing game that I would play on my telephone. And he was your guys' age. And I would hand him the phone, and he would go fishing, reeling in, marlins and groupers and all this on my phone. And so just imagine me, in the major leagues, and Jackson was like 4 or 5, and both of us are in the back of the team bus, winging my telephone up and down the aisle. But then you fast forward, and here he is absolutely raking. I mean, he hit over 600 in high school, right? I mean, the guy is a freak when it comes to bat to ball skill, which means can you put the bat on the ball with frequency, with power, and on average? And he does all of those things exceptionally well. He's an incredible athlete. He's very physical in nature. And again, you go back to the DNA and the pedigree, there's nothing not to like about Jackson Holliday.
With those memories in your in your head of this child, how meaningful was that for you last night? And especially the future of baseball to be put on someone who is in such good hands.
Well, that's where my mind goes anytime I start to think about the future of the game. What do the youth look like in terms of are they coming from places where they've had experience? Are they coming from you think about Vanderbilt, the kind of athletes they're pumping out. But when I think about the youth, I think about the talent that is littered throughout our game right now. There's not been a more exciting time in baseball to be a fan of baseball based on the skill set that all of these young kids have that are already in the big leagues. And now you're watching, for the first time ever, first time in Major League history, 2 sons of former big leaguers go back-to-back 1 and 2. That's the future of baseball right now. Former All-Stars are having All-Star babies.
And the fact that you know their former all-star fathers, I always feel like the humbling moment too, where we look around and go, "Oh, okay, my friend's kids are now getting up here in this.
For sure,
this is getting real quick."
For sure. I mean, if my arm hadn't have fallen off, there's a chance I'd end up facing some of these guys, and they'd probably end up ushering me out of the door even quicker.
I do want to ask, because you mentioned some of the challenges that young players face coming up here. We saw already the Red Raider love. You didn't come straight from high school and do it, but even walking into this league as a young person in general, coming up through the minor league system, what are the biggest things that you would say young players have to look out for when they're starting to make this leap to becoming professionals in this league?
Well, I think you guys can understand and respect that as you continue to climb levels in this life, realistically, your circle gets smaller and smaller. And that's something that you have to come to terms with once you get to the professional level, is because there's a lot of people reaching at you, pulling at you from different ways, wanting a lot of different things, and ultimately your time is the one thing that shouldn't have a price tag attached to it. But unfortunately in this game, it does. In pro sports, it does. You only have a limited window, and so you've got to do everything you got to do to capitalize on that. And shrinking that circle is one of the important things. Understanding there's a level of discipline that has to come with trying to graduate levels and get to the big leagues, because it's not like collegiate basketball. It's not like collegiate football where you're a guy at the university and you're going to be a guy at the next level right after you sign that check, right? Or right after you sign that contract. It doesn't work that way. So you got to understand who's around you, be cognizant of that. Take care of your chickens, as Marshawn said.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying? Straight up.
Obviously, there's sage wisdom that comes out of NFL players every week during the NFL season. Just watch a press conference. And you were comparing a lot of different sports, and I had this question I wanted to ask you. From a major league perspective, we all know different athletes shit on each other's sports because they think their sport is superior, right? I want to know, what do the major leaguers say about football players? Like, what's a common trope that gets thrown out to talk shit about big gentlemen like ourselves?
I don't ever, and I mean, I don't know how this is going to land with you guys. It might be some give and take here, but as far as the linemen are concerned, right, you get crushed at the lower levels because we all understand you're not catching anything. You can't move.
Yes.
That all changes once you get to those bigger levels. You now become the most intelligent people, aside maybe from the guy who's calling the audibles, on the field, right? Like, blocking assignments, you understand everybody's job. So that starts to change. I have always thought about football players as some of the most freakish athletes, just raw physicality. And I've long said, like, you want to sell tickets to football? Like, let's line up the big dudes and the skinny dudes, and let's put them at the 20-yard line on each. Let's run 80-yard Oklahomas. Let me watch that. I want to watch that unfold, because that is just pure freakishness flying at each other, right? You got dudes that are 300 pounds running 4.5s. Are you serious?
Thank you.
It is absolute mutant behavior. You're right. That we need to call that, like, upgraded from Oklahoma. That's just a full-blown missile drill.
That's exactly what that is.
Straight at each other.
Scuds, line them up. Let's do it.
All right. Dallas Braden, very excited about the potential scud drill coming up here. All-Star Weekend, what has you most excited going into the break right now, heading into this weekend in Major League Baseball?
It's the Derby, simply put. It's the home run derby, because we show out as a sport. Baseball does the Derby better than NBA does any sort of anything they do on their All-Star Weekend, right? The All-Star game, that's a laughing stock.
I would say at this point with the dunk contest, too, the way that's gone and kind of declined in popularity over the years.
It's a tough watch.
I think the new format with that we've gone to in the home run derby now, where it's guys just getting up there and getting pitches up there, getting bats going quickly, I think that's helped.
It's time. The clock is now a very real part of whether or not you're going to win or lose, managing the time. You have a say in that. You got to hit the ball far enough, buy yourself a little extra time. The NFL is a glorified flag football game.
Yes.
That's tired. True. That's eyewash. We don't need that. Nobody does. I'll take the trip to Hawaii. Sure, invite me, but I don't. Like, let's not. Why are we doing that?
And they're changing that, too. Now, I do have a slight issue with you coming to the All-Star MLB game. I'm sorry, the NBA All-Star game. Because it's kind of like you don't sit around and shit on the Harlem Globetrotters. You know what I mean? It's just like,
you know what
it's
you're
just
getting.
a show.
You know
it's just a show.
Yeah,
and the end doesn't matter. The trophy's silly.
You do have actual competition in this home run derby, like to the point of
matters.
To talk. Well, and I want to get to, because
Money
I
on the
heard
line.
you and Jared talk about this a lot. Pedro Alonso, your guy's favorite, is fascinating to me because you've talked about this matters to him. Like, coming and winning the home run derby actually matters to him. Something that most people look at as arbitrary. It's a fun thing to do in the midst of All-Star Weekend. Why does this matter so much to him?
I think because he's an old school, he's a throwback. Like, if you've seen the movie Gladiator, you can remember all of those guys in a line waiting to go out into the Coliseum, right? And Russell Crowe, he's been there. He's kind of letting them know what's coming. He's going to lead the charge. And even in that environment, imagine this old, grizzled warrior off to the side, sitting in the shadows by himself, doesn't even have his armor on yet because he knows what's coming. He's been there, done that, right? And Pete Alonso, it doesn't matter what the numbers look like leading up to the All-Star break. He knows what job he has ahead of him. And so as everybody kind of shuffles out there into that Coliseum, here comes Pedro Alonso. But strapping it on, ready to go, because the lights are going to hit, and he is going to start dropping absolute mammos.
As you explained it, I envision Albert Pujols sitting down there.
Like getting rolled out in his wheelchair? I mean, I love Albert.
He knows what's coming.
But he's not... come on.
Okay, so no hope for Albert Pujols in this one. Another historic home run appearance for him in the home run derby.
No, I appreciate. I mean, Rob Manfred absolutely crushed it with the legacy selections and bringing these guys in at just a baller move. But as far as the derby, like, next.
Understandable. The Pete Alonso point is great. They were showing the home run derby from, I believe it was last year up here, and he was going up against Trey Mancini at one point, and Trey started to get into a groove, and you just saw Pete Alonso over there just sitting down, nodding his head. Calm and collected, just like a caged animal. So he's excited. Hard to bet against him on that one. We've talked a lot about Julio Rodriguez and what he's been for the Seattle Mariners here. But I do want to ask, because you mentioned what Rob Manfred got right. And I thought last year, so much of the conversation going into All-Star Weekend was about Shohei Ohtani, about how they got it right, letting him go out here, letting him pitch, letting him bat, all these great things that had been the story of Major League Baseball. I understand the Angels are, yet again, a massive disappointment as a baseball team, but it seems like some of the fervor around Shohei is a little more subdued heading into an All-Star break where, again, he is here as a pitcher, as a hitter. What do you attribute that to?
That's just kind of where we're at as a society with everything. Like, I mean, that's not baseball specific. It's not sport specific. It's you're clamoring for the next big thing. You're clamoring for the cool thing. You're swiping for it every 10 seconds. When you get it, you enjoy it. And then you're like, well, let me swipe again because there's got to be something else cool, right? And so you've heard the story of Shohei being as good as Babe Ruth. You've heard everything that he's done since Babe Ruth has done it. And people have already gotten bored with that. And I can't even begin to understand how that happens. But I think that's just how we, as human beings, process things in our day-to-day life. And so I think he's just a victim of the way society kind of goes today. There's really no other explanation I have for it.
Well, and for him and Mike Trout, I think most of us that come at baseball as casual fans who have looked and said, Mike Trout's been one of the best players, if not the best player in baseball for as long as he's been in the league, and he's been toiling out there with the Angels. You've now got Shohei Ohtani, this unbelievable phenomenon, and the beginning of the season they come out and they make us think maybe it's different this time. What does the future hold for those two? Like, are we ever going to see a world where we get to watch them play baseball when the calendar turns to October?
Oh, we're talking about the Halos? Yeah, that time, I mean, look, you're already starting to see Mike Trout come out and say things about his desire to win. It had been a long time before he was ever vocal about saying anything like that, about, hey, you know, I'd like to see us make some moves. He never said anything about that. Now he's starting to talk. Pay attention to that. Shohei Ohtani is already starting to say, you know, it's been great. I told you guys I was really good. See, what are you going to do about that? You going to bring anybody else in here to help?
So you're thinking this starting to look like we could finally see one or both of these guys positioning themselves to actually go to greener pastures?
I just don't know that the man at the very top of that mountain that makes that decision, Mr. Moreno, I don't know for whatever crazy reason he would ever let that happen, because there comes a point in time where you realize that very well could be better for the long term of the organization. But I don't like to say that because Angels fans understand there's still time now. You can still make moves now. You still have two greatest players in the game right now. What are you going to do about that instead of standing idly by? That's why I can understand Angels fans' frustration.
So frustrated now. let's go to the opposite coast here with the Nationals. We talked a little bit yesterday about this with Jared, but the Juan Soto situation now turns down a $440 million offer. Say that again out loud to yourself.
Yeah.
Try not to puke all over your shoes here. I would love to just know what that feeling is like to say, no, I'm a $500 million baby. Thank you very much. How do you see that playing out here in the short term and going forward? We got the trade deadline coming up. There's talk that maybe he could be someone that's on the move before then. Do you think that's a realistic possibility?
I don't know how realistic that is right now because I think teams are going to you have to know. It's going to be your top 5. If we're talking about currency in terms of prospects and resources of that nature, top 5. Give them all to me. Like, you don't have the room to tell me who you don't want to go. If you want Juan Soto, I'll tell you where I'm going to stop in terms of prospects on your list. It's that simple. I don't know that Mr. Rizzo is going to be in a position to entertain that right now because I think there's a lot of this is telling you we're going to free agency. Like, you just turned down $500 million. Like, you're going to see if anybody else is going to throw that $500 million paycheck at you.
Man, that's an insane position to be in. But again, well, he's a Boras guy, right?
Correct.
So pretty par for the course
2
as
years
far as
away,
how he approaches clients. So all this seems to make sense. But again, just fascinating now for Juan Soto to walk into the All-Star Weekend and to walk into the Home Run Derby coming up tonight, where he basically said he was disappointed that this news got out and that now this has to be the focus going into tonight, which is supposed to be an opportunity for him to go out there and blast dingers again.
And I think a lot of that has to do with how humble Juan Soto is as well. He doesn't want this weekend to be focused on him. He doesn't, he understands, that's kind of why I'm here, because I'm pretty good and we're all going to enjoy everybody that's good. But it's not about my dollars and cents right now. This is about the weekend. This is about everybody enjoying the first half that everybody's had. So I can understand that. He also, if you're about business the way I think Juan Soto is, he's going to want to handle this stuff behind closed doors. He's going to want to take care of this stuff in a buttoned-up kind of fashion. He doesn't want the laundry out on the street for everybody to smell. So I have a lot of respect for guys who have sort of said, and kind of like Aaron Judge, like, look, come correct or don't come at all, because once it comes time to strap it on, conversation's over with.
Right. So go ahead. Well, we talked about baseball is dead. That's what kind of led to this. There was a bunch of talk about this. I guess since the pandemic started, there was that you heard about baseball dying off. We actually know now baseball is quite litty-titty. And I want to know, why do you think right now it's changed? Baseball's always had stars. It's always been about star power. It's always been the home derby's always been a draw for casual baseball fans like myself. But now it feels kind of palpable. Baseball feels as big in LA right now as the Rams, which only got to that point after winning a Super Bowl. So what in your perspective, someone's been following baseball for so long, why now? Why is in 2022 it seems like baseball is kind of cutting through in a real way?
Because baseball is as closely paralleled and intertwined with pop culture, in my opinion, as it's ever been. We're getting closer and closer to being more mainstream in that regard. Like, think about where we're at. It's 2022, and we're finally coming to terms with the bat flip being a regular thing. And we've been pumping out videos of guys bat flipping since the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we've been battling as a sport, is just getting regular fans to come around and realize there's been a whole revolution and evolution in other sports on how things are celebrated, how athletes carry themselves, and baseball has been stuck in the past for so long. So because athletes, and straight up, athletes do not look like me these days. We have African-American athletes, we have Latino athletes, we have Asian-born athletes that are absolutely tearing the sport up. And that is incredible, because people who don't look like me need to know that people that look like them are absolutely crushing it. And that's also a big part of why baseball is becoming a thing. Because here in LA, Mookie Betts, right? There's a lot of folks that were looking for somebody that they could draw. Mookie provide Ronald Acuna Jr. out in Atlanta. He's going to be here. Come on. Venezuelans going nuts. I love that. I've said this. You want to watch the Home Run Derby? You need to put it on the Spanish channel. You need to watch a Spanish broadcast. Ooh. Straight up.
I love that.
Straight up.
Just gas.
Oh, my God.
That is true. It's a different.
This is coming from a guy who got to call the Home Run Derby with Chris Berman.
Yes. Which I can say it's its own level of energy, but you're right.
God.
There are in fact levels to this.
Yes.
There are in fact levels to this. What was the breakthrough point for you? Because for so long, you're right, it felt like there was a resistance to a lot of that, to a lot of the personality that pop out. Was there a moment that stuck out to you where you're like, all right, we've made that breakthrough, we've made that progress?
I think it's just the stars in the game being okay with being unapologetically themselves, and people being okay with that or coming to terms with that, you know? And whether you can get on board with the evolution that's occurring, it's something that you just need to be aware of, because folks are always afraid of what's different. If you just sit back, though, and allow yourself to see the forest and the trees, I think you're really going to enjoy the scenery. And I think that's what people are starting to do, because the kids that are watching the game are now telling mom and dad to shut up and watch the clip, and I'll show it to you on my phone how awesome it is. And now parents are starting to get it, right?
Right.
And so I think it's that snowball effect. It's been a long time coming, but it's coming.
It seems like there's a show in between the show. Like, to see Soto in between pitches,
Soto shuffle.
I could watch a rip. I watched 9 minutes of it last night, just of the Soto shuffle, just in that little pool. I could watch it all day long.
That's right. I mean, and it's little things like that younger athletes gravitate towards, but just that excitement, that in the moment, right? Because in 2005, guys are taking pitches like that, and they're excited about the fact that they took it, but they're not showing out like that. Like, that's not a thing. Now it is. And then Juan Soto backs it up by dropping D on you 500 feet to dead central.
Swagged out baseball in 2022. We love to see it. That's the kind of celebration, you're right, bringing young fans into it, continuing to grow that on All-Star Weekend. As we come out of All-Star Weekend, going down the stretch here, ask you to pull out your prognosticating hat here. What is your World Series matchup right now that you see coming down the pipes?
Woo! Man, I mean, look, the NL East is a really exciting division right now. Just whether or not the Mets are, going to be able to continue to do what they've done. They're obviously getting some reinforcements back. They got Max back. Jacob deGrom is coming back. That pitching staff is outstanding. Can the offense just kind of keep pace and give them a fighting chance? The Atlanta Braves have showed everybody, like, look, we're real. We're real. We showed you last year we were real. We're real again. So the National League, I think the Dodgers are still, in my opinion, a team that you just can't. Well, what you're telling me? No, you're telling me they're not gonna. That's tough to see. The Walker Buehler is a big deal. I don't know what kind of impact Dustin May is going to have, if he's going to be able to come back and what he provides them. But I still don't think the Dodgers are a team you can count out in the National League. The American League is going to be crazy, because the American League East looks like it does, right? The division in baseball that's got everybody above 500 right now. There's a team in the American League West, the Seattle Mariners, who have won 14 straight, that make that wild cards conversation really interesting. But I think the Yankees, the Yankees are a team, and look, I understand that they've cooled off. They haven't performed the way. Look, the big question was sustainability.
Yes.
Can they sustain this? Can they do this? And I guess you can now start to say, well, you can realize why that was the question, because they're winning at a 700% clip, 680% clip. Well, it's starting to taper off. Aaron Judge has started to slow down a bit. I mean, what did he end the break on? 32 homers, 32 jacks? I mean, come on. I don't know how cool that is. But
Carpenter's picking up that slack a little bit.
I mean, the guy it was brought to my attention that he has more home runs in roughly 80 or so baseball games than anybody on the team that I call baseball games for, which is really crazy to think, because you could probably say that for some other teams. But to think he's got 16, 17 homers or whatever it is in 80-some-odd games, if it's even that many, I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Now, Jared thinks that the Red Sox season is over with the injury of Chris Sale. Do you agree with him?
Well, you could go back to an episode, I would say, arguably, a couple months ago, where Jared declared the Red Sox back. I know that might not have circulated the way it should have, but there was a moment in time where the Red Sox were indeed back. And then to see them, not get all the way back, and then maybe, get dealt a tough hand, that hurts.
It was a tough one. Is there anything nice you can say about the Red Sox to cheer Jared up? Before we let you go here, you've been fantastic again. Everyone stick around. Baseball is Dead going to be taping right after us here. But we saw Jared as the lowest of lows. Really just got to hang out with him for the first time yesterday. Started off on a tough note with that. Is there anything nice you can say about the Sox to cheer him up today?
I have more collegiate home runs than the Red Sox manager, Alex Cora.
There we go. That seems like the perfect way to bounce this. Dallas, We appreciate the time today. Congrats on that accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the All-Star break here. Looking forward to the home run derby tonight. Thanks so much, man.
Enjoyed it, gentlemen.
Again, stick around. Baseball is dead. Coming up right after us here in the DraftKings tent. We're, again, very shady, very breezy here. But still, even though we're not in the sunlight, Brandon, feels like a good time to show off and talk about one of our